June 22, 1944. Near Vipsk, Belarus. Dawn. Mist clings low over the pine forests as German sentries stamp their boots against the cold earth. Mosquitoes hover above swamp water, and somewhere in the distance artillery rumbles, faint enough to be dismissed as routine Soviet harassment. A Feldwebel from the 256th Infantry Division checks his watch. 3:45 hours. Another quiet morning on the Eastern Front. Or so they believe. Inside a reinforced bunker, General Abbas George Hans Reinhard, commander of the German 3rd Panzer Army, studies situation maps pinned to plywood walls. Red pencil markings show Soviet positions across the front, dense but predictable. Intelligence reports claim the main Soviet offensive will strike farther south, toward Ukraine. Berlin is confident. Even Adolf Hitler himself insists Army Group Center faces only limited pressure. The officers drink bitter coffee. Staff clerks type reports. Trucks grind along muddy supply roads, carrying ammunition meant to hold static defensive lines. But the front feels wrong. Reconnaissance patrols report unusual Soviet radio silence. Rail traffic behind Soviet lines has vanished. Partisan activity is rising. Entire villages seem emptied overnight. Still, German High Command dismisses warnings. Across nearly 700 kilometers of front line, Army Group Center stands exposed. Over 800,000 German soldiers, thinly spread, exhausted after 3 years of relentless war. Defensive trenches cut through forests and marshlands, but reserves are scarce. Panzer divisions have been transferred west to face the expected Allied invasion after D-Day. The Eastern Front is no longer Germany's priority, and that is precisely what Soviet planners have been waiting for. At 4 o'clock, the forest suddenly ignites. Thousands of Soviet guns open fire simultaneously. A thunderclap so massive the ground physically lifts beneath German positions. Trees shatter into splinters. Telephone lines snap. Observation posts vanish in pillars of dirt and flame. Veterans who survived Stalingrad stare in disbelief. This is not harassment. This is annihilation. Operation Bagration has begun. The artillery barrage does not stop. For 2 relentless hours, Soviet guns hammer every known German position. Trenches, headquarters, supply depots, bridges, crossroads. More than 7,000 artillery pieces and rocket launchers fire in coordinated waves, guided by meticulous reconnaissance gathered over months. German survivors describe it as the end of the world. Entire battalions disappear before firing a single shot. Near Vipsk, Lieutenant Colonel Karl Meyer crawls from a collapsed command dugout, ears ringing, uniform coated in soil. Field telephones are dead. Radio operators scream into static. The chain of command, Germany's greatest strength, is already unraveling. Above the chaos, Soviet Illinois II Sturmovik ground attack aircraft roar low across the battlefield. Their cannons rake German defensive lines while Katyusha rockets scream overhead, leaving trails of smoke like fiery comets. This is not merely an attack. It is a perfectly staged deception. For months, Soviet High Command, the Stavka, directed by Marshal Georgy Zhukov and Marshal Alexander Vasilevsky, has conducted one of the greatest Maskirovka operations of the war. Fake troop movements misled German intelligence into believing Ukraine remained the primary target. Meanwhile, for massive Soviet front secretly assembled opposite Army Group Center. 1st Baltic Front under General Ivan Bagramian. 3rd Belarusian Front led by General Ivan Cherniakovsky. 2nd Belarusian Front commanded by Georgy Zakharov. 1st Belarusian Front under Marshal Konstantin Rokossovsky. Over 2.3 million Soviet soldiers, supported by thousands of tanks and aircraft, now surge forward. German forward defenses, already undermanned, collapse almost immediately. Soviet assault troops advance behind rolling artillery barrages, crossing minefields mapped by partisans. Engineers throw bridges across rivers within hours. T-34 tanks push through forest tracks thought impassable. By midday, multiple German divisions are no longer fighting formations. They are isolated pockets. Reports reach Army Group Center headquarters describing breakthroughs 5, 10, 15 kilometers deep. General Reinhard requests permission to withdraw to secondary defensive lines, Berlin's reply arrives quickly. Hold positions. No retreat authorized. Far from the front, Hitler believes this is merely another Soviet probing attack. On the ground, German officers understand something terrifying. The Red Army is not trying to push them back. It is trying to erase them. By June 23rd, the battlefield map no longer resembles a front line. It looks like shattered glass. North of Vipsk, Soviet spearheads punch through weak German sectors with terrifying speed. Waves of infantry follow closely behind armored formations, bypassing resistance instead of stopping to destroy it. German strongpoints are deliberately ignored, surrounded, isolated, and left to suffocate. General Oberst George Hans Reinhard realizes the danger immediately. His 3rd Panzer Army is being split apart. German doctrine depends on organized withdrawal and flexible defense, but that requires permission, and permission must come from Hitler. At Army Group Center headquarters, Field Marshal Ernst Busch sends urgent requests to Berlin. Soviet breakthroughs are widening, reserves are insufficient, and frontline units risk encirclement. The response arrives through the Führer headquarters. Stand fast. Vipsk is a fortress city. No withdrawal permitted. The order seals the fate of 5 German divisions. Inside Vipsk, soldiers of the 206th, 246th, and 4th Luftwaffe field divisions dig deeper into ruined streets as Soviet artillery closes in. Ammunition runs low. Fuel trucks never arrive. Luftwaffe support is nearly absent. German aircraft are desperately needed in the west after the Allied landings in Normandy. Outside the city, Soviet tank units race forward, cutting railways and roads. Bridges explode behind retreating German columns. Partisan fighters attack supply convoys from dense forests, turning every escape route into an ambush. Radio messages grow frantic. Enemy tanks in rear areas. Command post overrun. Request immediate breakout authorization. None comes. On June 25th, Soviet forces complete the encirclement. Nearly 30,000 German troops are trapped inside Vipsk. Attempts to break out dissolve into chaos. Columns moving at night collide with Soviet blocking forces illuminated by flares. Artillery smashes formations before they can organize. Entire regiments surrender or vanish in the forests. When the city finally falls, only fragments escape. German generals begin to understand the scale of disaster unfolding. Army Group Center is not bending. It is breaking faster than anyone in Berlin imagined possible. While Vipsk collapses in the north, the center of the German line disintegrates with even greater violence. To the south, General Kurt von Tippelskirch struggles to control what remains of the German Fourth Army. Soviet armored columns are no longer probing. They are racing. Entire corps report enemy tanks appearing in their rear before frontline commanders even know they've been flanked. Near Orsha, Soviet forces smash through defensive belts once considered impregnable. German anti-tank guns fire until barrels glow red, but Soviet T-34s keep coming, advancing behind dense artillery curtains that move forward like mechanical storms. On June 27th, a critical highway east of Minsk falls into Soviet hands. That single road had been the primary retreat route for tens of thousands of German soldiers. Now it is gone. Field Marshal Ernst Busch is relieved of command, replaced by Field Marshal Walter Model. Hitler's so-called fireman rushed in to stabilize catastrophe. But even Model, known for salvaging broken fronts, stays at situation maps and sees something almost unimaginable. Entire corps are missing. The Fourth Army is being swallowed whole. German divisions retreat through forests choked with refugees, burning vehicles, and shattered artillery pieces. Fuel shortages force crews to abandon tanks intact. Horses collapse from exhaustion. Luftwaffe transport aircraft attempt emergency supply drops, but Soviet fighters dominate the skies. On July 3rd, Soviet forces enter Minsk. By then, roughly 100,000 German troops are trapped east of the city in what becomes known as the Minsk Pocket. Columns attempting breakout are encircled and destroyed in rolling battles across fields and woodland clearings. When the fighting ends, more than 300,000 German soldiers have been killed, wounded, or captured since the offensive began. An entire Army Group Center, has effectively ceased to exist. In Berlin, the shock is palpable. German generals who survived Stalingrad whisper that this defeat is worse. Because this time, there is no river to regroup behind, no prepared fallback line. The road to Poland, and eventually to Germany itself, lies open. July 4, 1944. Führer Headquarters, East Prussia. Inside the reinforced concrete bunker complex of the Wolfschatz, the air feels heavier than usual. Maps cover long wooden tables, red arrows now slashing deep into what had once been the solid blue mass of Army Group Center. Field Marshal Walter Model stands rigid, pointer in hand, explaining the situation to Adolf Hitler. His voice is controlled, but his words are catastrophic. Mein Führer, the Fourth Army no longer exists as a cohesive formation. Communications are severed. Breakout attempts have failed. Silence. Hitler's face tightens. He had been assured the main Soviet thrust would fall elsewhere. Intelligence briefings, Luftwaffe reconnaissance, even signals intercepts had all pointed south. The deception had worked perfectly. Now, entire German corps are gone, erased in less than 2 weeks. Generals exchange glances. No one dares speak first. For years, Germany's Eastern Front had been a brutal tug-of-war, territory lost, then retaken. Even after Stalingrad, defensive lines stabilized. But this is different. The Soviet advance is not slowing. It is accelerating. Reports arrive hourly. Soviet spearheads crossing the Berezina River. Panzer divisions retreating without fuel. Bridges destroyed before German columns can reach them. Tens of thousands of prisoners marched east. Model requests immediate authorization for elastic defense, controlled withdrawals to shorten the line. Hitler refuses broad retreats. Every kilometer must be held. But reality on the ground is no longer negotiable. By mid-July, Soviet forces have advanced over 300 kilometers. What had once been the strategic center of Germany's Eastern Front is now a gaping void. German generals, veterans of Poland, France, and Barbarossa, finally confront the truth. The Red Army they face in 1944 is not the broken force of 1941. It is a machine, and it is rolling west. By mid-July 1944, Soviet columns no longer advance cautiously. They surge forward with confidence born from total victory. Marshal Konstantin Rokossovsky drives the First Belarusian Front westward with relentless precision. His tank armies exploit every breach, bypassing resistance and pushing toward the borders of Poland. Behind them, mechanized infantry secure roads while engineers rebuild bridges almost as quickly as German units destroy them. German commanders attempt to form new defensive lines along rivers and towns, but nothing holds. Army Group Center has vanished, leaving neighboring formations dangerously exposed. Army Group North begins pulling back toward the Baltic. Army Group North Ukraine struggles to avoid encirclement. The entire Eastern Front, once stretching in a controlled arc, starts folding inward. Soviet air superiority becomes absolute. Illinois II attack aircraft roam freely, hunting retreating German columns. Supply trains explode under bombing runs. Refugees mix with soldiers along dusty roads, creating endless traffic jams visible from the sky. German panzer crews report fighting without infantry support. Infantry units report no anti-tank weapons left. Headquarters units suddenly find themselves on the front line. Even Field Marshal Walter Model cannot restore cohesion fast enough. The scale of Soviet coordination shocks German intelligence. 4 massive fronts advance simultaneously, supported by partisan sabotage behind German lines. Railways are torn apart. Communication cables vanish overnight. Entire headquarters lose contact for days at a time. Within weeks, Soviet forces liberate vast territories. Belarus completely reclaimed. Eastern Poland under threat. Soviet spearheads approaching the Vistula River. 4 German soldiers retreating west. The psychological impact is devastating. Veterans who once marched triumphantly into Soviet territory now flee through the same villages in reverse, exhausted, hunted, and unsure where the next offensive stand will even occur. Operation Bagration is no longer an offensive. It has become a strategic earthquake. and its shockwaves are about to reach Germany itself.